Hello and welcome to this video on customizing Dynamics 365. So far we've been talking about the application itself, what are the capabilities of the application around a business process, and what are the out of the box or how you call it standard Microsoft functionalities that are offered to support any business process. We talked about how Customer Service Hub, for an instance, is an app that is offered from Microsoft with a configuration of a lot of different tables added to the app and a lot of functionalities such as SLAs and automatic case creation rules, which are very fundamental to the process, how we work with them. But more often than normal, what happens is when an application such as Dynamics 365 Customer Service is enabled for a company, for an environment, it still requires some development on top of it because every business process is unique, which requires additional customization. So how do we really do those customizations? How do we really make the system and how do we really tailor it to a certain organization? And what are the possibilities? So we will delve into all of these different questions that I just posed and see how we can start doing it. In this session, I can also say the title of this session can also be make.powerapps.com because this is the place where we are going to start editing things. Make.powerapps.com is the portal that allows you to customize and configure an environment of Dynamics. In this case, I've chosen my environment here. So before you start configuring a system, first you need to check if I've selected the right environment. When you have selected the right environment, then you need to go on solutions because that's where you start putting things in. Think of it as a box that is meant for adding customization. If you don't understand the concept of solutions yet, I will make a separate video for it. For now, I will just give you the basics of how you should really proceed before you customize things because solutions and working with solutions itself is a very huge subject. And if I cover into it now, then it might become a bit too lengthy. And this is also not the intent of the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new solution. I already have a solution that I created, but let's say if you do not have a solution to start off with, then you create a new one. But if you do, let's say if you start to configure, and which will mostly be the case, then you always should ask this question: which solution should I start working off with? This is your container. This is a box where you start putting things in. Always think of solutions as boxes. So in this case, I also have an existing solution that I have been using to make customizations and adding changes. I can also start from here. But if you want to create a new solution, by all means, go ahead and just create a new solution. As I said, I'm not getting into creating a new solution because it would really tempt me to explain a lot of things which may not be entirely necessary here. When you go to a solution, if you are not starting from the scratch, then you will already find components in a solution like this. Otherwise, you would have seen this as blank and nothing would have been added. But this portal itself is quite self-explanatory. It gives you the option to customize any kind of thing, any record, add any new fields, change the layout of how a record is shown. So basically, it's what's also called a form. So we will deep dive into every single of those components that are possible. If you want to create new things, then you start with plus new. If you want to make changes to something that already exists, then we use add existing. In this demo, we will see both of them, but I will first start off with a new one. When you click on new, there are a lot of options like you already see. And I will first start off with the most used option. Okay? We have seen already in a different video how you can create your own model-driven apps, so I will not be getting into that. But you can look for it. I will add a URL to the description on how you can create your first model-driven app. But for example, mostly where you start off with is, let's say, creating a table. And what a table is nothing else but what you see here. Case is a table, and the table contains list of all the cases, doesn't matter what their status is, doesn't matter what the values of each column is. It will hold all those records and individual values of the columns. What are the things when you start off at a project, or if you start working as an initial Dynamics um, consultant, is that you'll be working a lot with these tables. These tables itself not only contain the option to create new tables, but also allows you to make modifications on by adding fields to an existing table, but also changing the layout of how it represents. So if I were to create a new table, I can just say table, and let's say I will call it case investigations. Because this table, what it will contain, it will contain additional details of case investigation. I could have created new columns as well, but I chose to create case investigations as a, as a new table because they will contain a lot of information that may not suit a case. They are more or less extensions or good to know um, details, and they can also be more than one property per definition. So what I mean by is that one case can have more than one investigation types, right? And let's say I will click on, yeah, you also have additional options. For example, what record ownership should it be? And I will take this time to also talk about some of the best practices. When you create a new table, you have some of the options to specify the type standard activity virtual. The type in most of the cases would be standard. If you classify this as an activity, then it will be a very different kind of table. It will be a kind of activity. And you already have a lot of tables like that that are offered from Microsoft. Um, just for me to show you exactly how these activities look like. So when I click on activities, so every table that has been made of a type activity falls automatically under activities. So here you have the option to see all different kinds of activities. So activity itself is an activity, but a task table is also an activity. So when this task table was created, the type was not mentioned as standard, but as an activity. The same goes with phone call, emails, etc. But in this case, it's not going to be an activity, but it's going to be more of like a standard record. And that's the choice in most of the cases. There are very less scenarios where you will have the option to create activities. And when you do have to, it would be known and you would really know that this falls under activity. The record ownership, mostly I choose as user and team because it allows you to flexibility. And that is something we will learn when we work with security roles, is to basically assign records to users or teams and then secure those records within them. However, if you set it on an organization level, then you will not have an option later on to switch to teams and or user, because this is something that you should definitely know before you start creating a table. Will different users see different records, or will different users have different kind of permissions of creating or editing or something similar? And this is itself in itself is a very broad subject. That's why I think we'll create a different session for that. The default option would then be user or team. It's the safest bet because with this you can also implement this structure automatically. So, but if you choose this, then you cannot go back to this structure. So this is the safest bet, especially if you don't know how this table is going to evolve in the future. If you choose if you wish to choose, you can also give it an image. For now, I will skip that part to kind of keep it focused to the basics. Um, Everything else you can keep it as is. It's These are details that I think you will learn on the way, or probably I'll create more dedicated sessions on individual property of a table. But for now, if you want to get started with creating a table, I think this is good enough. So when you fill in all these properties, you can click on save. And when you're saving, what happens is that Microsoft is adding a new table to your database, to your Dynamics database, which is also referred to as Dataverse. And when it's done, you will have a blank table added. So I'm going to click on the tables now, and you see a new table has appeared. But this new table is very empty because it does not have a lot of columns. There are some columns that are created by default from Microsoft. For example, case investigations, the name, created by, created on, etc., modified by, modified on. Because again, this is a part of one of the nicer solutions where when you create a table, a lot of things that you would envision should exist, they are there, like created on. You would always want to know when a certain investigation record was created, and that these are some things that are automatically filled in by Microsoft. So um, always bear this in mind: created by, created on, modified by, modified on. A lot of these fields are automatically created. If I click on 13 more, I can see all the different things. They also have status, reason. Also, what is important is to remember that this is the name of the record, and there's always, and this is something also arranged from Microsoft, every record gets a unique identifier, which is referred to as GUID. And that is something also you do not have to worry about. So these are some of the things that are very fundamental to creating a table, which are automatically created for you when you create a new table. So the tasks for us becomes now to figure out what are the other columns we need. So whenever you have a requirement where you are supposed to create a new table, because on a case level, I want to capture all the investigations from different colleagues that have happened, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add also some columns wherein I can store who is going to investigate it, who is going to be, uh, uh, yeah, what information they need to add to save the investigation. So I'll start off by creating new columns. I can click on plus to add new columns. And this is where it is important for you to also define in advance, because these properties will not be changed, cannot be changed later. The data type especially. Data type is very, very important. Most of the time, your choice of field is going to be a single line of text. A single line of text is a field that basically stores information as is, with a limit of 200 or 100 characters, if I believe. Yeah, so maximum character count is 100, and the format of this is text. But you can also say this is a phone, this is an email, and then you have some validations already there, also a URL, and then the field becomes clickable. So for now, I will say I will choose a text, and the behavior is simple. You can also have calculated fields. That those are a bit more advanced, so I will not get into there. But if at all counted, calculated fields itself, they calculate things for you. So those fields are not edited by you, but they are just calculations of whatever property exists on the record. So I will say case investigator. Oh, sorry, I will say uh, investigation result, because we definitely want to store that. And this will be a text, and I can say a character count of 100, and I say save. And now Microsoft is basically creating that field of that data type field. In the same way, when whenever a table creation is requested as a requirement, all the columns should be predefined. So what you should definitely capture everything that needs to be recorded for this record as information. So I added that field, but I'm also going to say case investigation officer. And in this case, I would like to choose from a list of users that are already there as um, yeah, as officers. And so what I can do is, in that case, I know there is already a table within Dynamics that stores all the users of Dynamics. So in this case, I will choose my type as a lookup. And what are basically lookups? Lookups are a sort of field that refer to a different field. They refer to a different table. So in this case, if I choose lookup, it will first ask me, and it can be optional or required. So I say this is definitely business required because this needs to be filled in, as we always need to know who the investigation officer is for the investigation. And then says, um, all right, you fill the lookup. You have mentioned this is business required, but which is that table that it needs to look up? And that's why you have an option as a mandatory option to select a related table. And when I click on this list, I see accounts, contacts. So these are basically existing tables in Dataverse because you can make a lookup to any of those tables that are shown in the list. And as I mentioned, I need to select someone with user. So I go all the way down. I found user and I select it. And this user is exactly, and I'm going to show this behavior also for a different field. So when you have selected this, then your field is ready to be created. In the meantime, I can talk about created by. Created by is also a field that is a lookup created by Microsoft. And this created by is a lookup referring to the table user, correct? And that's why it is important for us to know what a lookup means and what are the possibilities of lookup. When I hovered over the lookup, I also, besides lookup, you have an option of customer, and it's a polymorphic lookup created as an option from Microsoft, where if you select customer, it will automatically make an association without you having to select it with accounts and contacts. So if you have a requirement where you need to create a field that should show you accounts and contact table, both records, then you should select customer lookup. I have added the lookup field for customer, for the user, and I've added the field investigation outcome. Here I'll say detailed analysis. And this is going to be detailed, therefore it will hold more text. And that's what I want. So that's why I want to have a multiple line of text. I'm going to say plain text, and that's it. The format is also text. This is optional, let's say, because they can choose to have it filled in or not. And here the maximum character count goes beyond 100. So here we have 2000, but you could also make it more if need be. So if you want to increase the number of characters, you can easily do it from here. And then you can save the record as well. So far we have created 3 columns. And they're all there. So if I look into 13 or more, I will see all those things. I have an owner field, status reason, and record created on, and also the records that investigation officer. So all the fields that I created, they are appearing over there. Okay, investigation result, also there. Detailed analysis, also there. I will also create one more type of field, and that is basically an option set type, we call it. So let's say investigation type. And this, we call it a choice. And in choice, you have the option to use a choice and create a new choice from yourself, or just choose an existing one called yes or no. So I say I will make a choice because it will not be just a yes or no, it will be more options. The behavior is simple. It could also be just like other fields I showed, told calculated. This is, I will say, required. Sync it with the global choice, yes or no. If it says recommended, go for it. And you can then choose an existing one. But you also have the option to say, no, this is something very local and which seems the investigation type can be a quality investigation or a legal investigation or a product investigation. I'm just making up some values, and you can also give them your own values, which basically means that they are like identifiers for it. So quality, legal, and general. Okay. And these values are important for if you give them some sort of logical sequence, it's nice. It's helpful for you in later on. But if you don't, and if you let it be like how Microsoft offers it, that's also fine. And then you can say if it's has a default value. So whenever a record is created or someone tries to create a new record, the value is auto-selected to something one of these. So I can say when someone starts to create a record, give it a choice value of general, or you could also keep it to none. So in this, nothing is selected. So let's say I will keep it to general. Everything else is just okay, and then we say save. So what we did in the last few minutes was we created a new table and we added columns to that. But none of that comes back to our environment in Customer Service Hub. We still have cases. If I refresh, we don't have anything else, right? So the first thing that we can do is we can add it to the model-driven app. Okay. So what we will do is we will add this table to the model-driven app Customer Service Hub, and we will add it right below cases so users have the option to create this record. For this, what I need to do is I need to check if the app Customer Service Hub is already added to this solution. When I click on apps, I see that there is something else, and it's one of the apps that I created recently. Uh, yeah, for another demo. So what I'm going to do is, because I have to make a modification to an existing app, this time I will not be choosing new app. Makes sense, right? Because Customer Service Hub is an app that is provided from Microsoft, and I want to add some modifications on top of it. So I use an add existing one. And here I have the option to choose app, and it's a model-driven app. And when I click this, it gives me all the options to choose from. So all these apps that I could modify. Here I have Customer Service Hub, so I say add it. It is important for you to add this to the solution because when the solution is rolled out to other environments, then these changes also go along. So that's why I also encourage working within the solutions, adding the changes within the box, because once the box is transported, all your changes will go together. If you keep it outside the box or in a different box, then when your expectation would be that your changes that you made um, go together with this box, they will not. So ensure that you choose the right box when you are making customization or the right solution in that case. So I've added the app, and now I can begin to edit it. So I click here, app, and when I click on this, it loads me the default app here, and in the navigation you can see there are four areas within the area service, and we want to add it below cases. So service is this one, and here I have service, Within the area, we have this group, and then here we say we want to add, uh, sorry, we want to add a new sub area. And the sub area is of type we just created. It was a table, so we will add a table. And here we select our table, so I will type case investigation, and I see it appearing here, and the title is case investigation. And now I can click on add, and you see how beautifully it's reflected on the right side. We will move it a level up, and now it's in the right place, and we save. And once you save your app, your changes are saved. You also need to publish it. That's one of the concepts that is very important. Any changes that you make, please don't forget to publish it. Otherwise, you will lose them. So it's saving, it's saving. And what we will do is we'll see how that the case investigation that we have added here in the model driven app appears. So I'll publish it, and then I can click on play to directly open it. Because once we see what is added over there, we will see what are the things we can already do with the things that we have created. Can we create a new investigation already? Does it make sense to already add a new investigation? Are we missing something? Do we still need to do something? All these questions we will hear the answer to once the publish is over and when I open the app. Yes, our publish is over. And now we click on play. And it didn't, so I'm gonna refresh it. One tip from my side, if your changes don't see, do a control F5, which is basically a hard refresh. So if you press control or F5, or if you press control and press here, then it basically cleans up everything and reloads it. So this is quite effective. Please use this step if you don't see your changes. It's not because you did not do it right. Sometimes it just requires a hard refresh. And now you see that our case investigations are added here. If we have added the picture to this record as well, just like this one, and we could have used this icon as well that's associated with case, the icon would also be here. Right now it's just something that it doesn't look very good. And when we click on case investigation, it shows us a default view, active case investigations and inactive case investigations. So these are the two views. And right now, because we have no records created, we only created a few columns, you don't see any records. So I will start by creating a new one. But all my fields that I wanted, they are not here. And this is what I wanted to show you. These fields should first be added to the form before I create a new record, right? Otherwise, the users wouldn't know what to do. So what I will do is I will go back, and my changes to the model-driven apps are done. So I will go back, and now I will go back to the table, because if you want to change anything that regards to the table, then you go to the table, and when you expand this column, then you see that you have the option to see columns, and from here itself you can add more columns, and it lists all the current columns you have, including the ones that we created. And then you see relationships. I will not get there. Keys, I will not get there in this session. But yes, forms. And forms is the one that we need to change, or we need to add those fields that we created. Because when Microsoft created a new entity for you, or a new table for you, it only added the fields that were available to add then. So what we need to do is add the fields that we want to, but there are also other options, so you can build on top of it. I will not get there yet. Forms and views we will see. Forms is basically the part where you want to open a record or create a new one, you will see the fields. But view is basically this one. It shows you different kinds of records. So this one shows inactive case investigation, and this one shows active case investigation. But we can create more views from the same option that I'm showing you. So here you have three kinds of form. The important form to always edit is the main form. I could just edit this existing one, or I could create a new one from scratch. I will choose to edit this one. And the main form is basically the one that you would see when you would click here and open the record, or when you try to create a new one. There are also other kinds of forms, but I will not get there as well, because that also requires a separate session. So for now, I'm talking mostly on a high level, and then I will deep dive on tables and forms and views later on. There are some things that you should also leave for your own imagination and try out some things, because that is how you will learn it. And then I could just drag and drop fields here, detailed analysis, and investigation result above it, investigation type, and then case investigation officer, right? So this is how my form is configured now. You can have tens or 20s of fields, and the form layout you can always change. It's super easy to add a structure to the form as well. But for now, we'll focus on just seeing how forms work, how you can add more fields in it. But otherwise, you have the option to add tabs and sections and then organize it accordingly. So now that my fields have been added, I will do a save. And do a publish. So it takes a bit of time, but you see, per field, you have also options to specify if this field needs to be visible in phone, if the label needs to be hidden, if the field needs to be hidden, if the field needs to be logged, if the field needs to be read-only, etc., etc. So this is something also for you to try on, see if you check this behavior, what really happens. And these are something that you would definitely use on a day-to-day basis, especially the read-only field and the hide field. Okay. So now that our changes are published, let's go and we do again a control F5, because that is definitely important before you see your changes. And if I try to create a new record now, I see all these options. So I can give it a name, investigation 1, case investigation officer / investigation type. Because we specified that the default option should be general, it's general, but I could also change it to product, legal, or quality. Investigation result is investigation was okay, blah, blah, blah. So investigations. And when you do that, your investigation case is ready to be saved. So I can choose save, and then I can stay in the record. I could have just saved and closed, which takes me back to the view. And you see that one of my investigation appears here. But what I don't see is this view basically holds just one field. So it's not very informative for me if I were to look at this. So all those fields that we added, we should also see them here when we click on case investigations. And this is our connect to views. How can we work with views, and how do we modify them, or how can we create a new one? So I'll start off with modifying one. We do the same way. We go to tables because it's a property of a table. We go to case investigation. And instead of form, because this time we're going to modify a view, we click on views, and then we click on active case investigation. What is important is to find public views, because those are the views that you will be working mostly with, and especially the ones that are available here, here. And we are going to edit the active case investigations. If you want your views to be, these views to be added, then you have to do it separately, one by one. So here I can say I want to view more column. I want to view this. I want this to be here. I want not the detailed analysis because it will be a lot of text. But yes, investigation result I want, investigation type. I want to see who created it, and I want to see who modified it. And that way you can add more columns. And here I can also say, okay, this is a bit bigger, so I'll make it smaller. This can be a bit bigger, and now we're okay. So this is how we basically update a view, save, and publish. So while it's publishing, maybe we can talk a little bit about new views as well. Right now, we try to add active and inactive investigations, but some people. Okay, first we'll quickly have a look at the changes that we made. So are they cascaded? I did a control F5, and now my activate investigation also has these columns. So this was super easy to do, but I want to also create a dedicated views for dedicated investigation type. So if I want to create a new view that shows only quality related investigations to me, then what I would do is I would, instead of changing an existing view, I would say new view. I'll say quality investigations. And one column has been already added for me. I can say I want the same columns added here as well, created by result type. And what's more important is in this case, because we want to see only cases that are of type quality, so we will say edit filter. And here this is the part where you can sort of predefine what a view should show in terms of records. Does it need to show all the records for the table, or does it need to show a filtered view? This is exactly how an Excel would work, where you have the option for one of the columns to specify what the filter is going to be. So when I click on edit filters, I can add a condition, add row, add group, add related table. I will not go into these two, makes it advanced. I will just go to add to rows. Some things you should try out yourself as well, like your curiosity, make you learn something. And as an investigation, wait, it is case investigation type, yes. If the investigation type is quality, then I say, okay. And now my view is ready. I can save, and it refreshes automatically, and I can publish. So while it's publishing, just to test our solution, we'll also create one investigation type that is not of type quality. So we'll just create a general one. So investigation 2, officer, same guy, and investigation result is happy, happy. And you save and close. So now we have two records, general and quality investigation types both. And we wanted to create a view which shows only the quality complaints. So in that case, the number of records that we will see when we switch to that view that we created should only be this record and not this one. So let's see. When I click here, I see my third view that I created. And indeed, this is how it's expected to be. So we also have a quality thing now, right? Okay, we have seen these things. We have seen forms, we have seen views, and we have seen how you can basically create your own views, how you can edit an existing form. You can also create a form just like how you created a view. So I would really let you try out those things. And then we move to the next part. And for this one, I would require a little bit of more attention from your side because these are business rules. Business rules are somewhat more complicated to understand than the other things. They are not at all very complicated, but let's let's have some attention now. So, in the case investigation, sometimes you want your users to be instructed that if this happens, show me this field. So let's say if the type of general, if the investigation is of type general, then we don't need a detailed analysis. Otherwise, we need, so that's why we will hide it. Otherwise, if it's any of the other cases, or let's do something more logical. If it's legal, then we make this um, mandatory and visible. Otherwise, we hide it and we make it not mandatory. Okay. So the fields that you see, they should change their behavior dependent on what you make as a selection. And in business rule, I will try to knock off as many options as I can. So we'll start off with a new business rule. It opens a new tab because with business rules, there are a lot of possibilities. It's not just that you can hide or show a field or make it mandatory or not mandatory. It is also used to autofill some values as well. So we will see what are the options now. The environment is a bit slow. Yes, it's loading. It's really slow. Okay, we have it loaded. This is how a canvas of a business rule looks like. There's already a set condition defined for you. And the condition basically, this is really an if and else logic. So if this condition is true, then do this. If not, then do this. But this can really go if, then, or let's say if then, if else then, if else then, else then, else then, and finally else. Okay, so it can have until 10 branching out of the box business rules. Okay, so whenever you need to use form related validation, this is what we use. So we say if a record is legal, and this is some text you can just add yourself. This is, if you don't add, then also it's not a fine. I tried to add this text so that it's easier for someone to read what the business rule is about. And investigation officer equals investigation type. Then I choose the field where I need to set the logic in. So our logic is if the investigation type is legal, then I want to show that field and I want to make it mandatory. So this is my condition. Do not forget to click on apply, otherwise you'll lose your changes. And then you have the condition set, and then you will move to adding what needs to happen if this condition is true. And these are the possibilities. You can give a recommendation on a field. Hey, you need to do this. You can lock or unlock a field so that it's no longer editable. It is visible, but it's no longer editable. You can show an error message. Let's say you do a validation of the field type and then you say this is not correct or this is above certain value, so you cannot enter that. These kind of error messages you can show. You can set a field value, like I said. You can really change a field value and make it something else. You can set a default value. You can set business required, so make something mandatory to enter. We saw on a field level when we created them that you can make something optional, recommended, or required. But if you keep it optional and you still want to make it mandatory for a certain form, this is the way to go. And then set visibility, so it will hide or show it. We will use these two in this one. So I will say, if it's legal, then make the field detailed analysis as business required. make detailed analysis business required. And then I will add one more step to also show this field, because in the next field, I'm going to hide it in the next condition. And here I will say investigation type, visibility is yes, show investigation. Oh, sorry, this should be detailed analysis. Show detailed analysis and apply. So business required and visible. So if this is not true, what should happen? You can add it here. And I say, I could have easily added one more condition that if it's product, then do something else. But I'm just going to say, instead of adding a condition, I will just directly add steps. So if this is true, do this. Oh, sorry, I need to delete this. Okay. So what we have added so far is also shown as a text here. If then, so let's add the other two things. I can also just click on the step, copy, paste. It saves me time. Copy, paste, and apply. Although it is the same value, so we need to change that. So if it is not true, then visibility should be no, and we make it not business required, right? So our business rule is basically ready. The last and the most important thing is the scope of this business rule. Because I mentioned earlier as well, for a certain table, you could have more than one forms. And that's why this scope is super important. The scope allows you to define the scope of this business rule. So do you want this business rule to follow this logic even when doesn't matter what the form is selected, and then you use all forms. When you select entity, it works also when the form is not open. So even when someone is trying to create a record from a different system, then this rule will be followed. And in this case, we want to scope it to the form that we created or the form that we edited, we use information. Had there been 10 forms, you could use either all forms or use one of the forms that we wanted to apply. And when you're done with this, you can save the business rule. And now it's fully ready for it to be activated. And now you can click on activate. And once it is activated, you can see this in action as well. So go back in the meantime. All right, so now we can activate this record. What is also super nice to see is that everything that you make as logic is also written down here for you to verify, because you won't be able to make a lot from this box from above. So you can also read it. If investigation type is legal, then set detailed analysis as business required, show detailed analysis. Otherwise, detailed analysis is not business required, and you can hide it. Okay, so everything is done. Now we are ready to go and test this thing, and we will do a control F5 just to make sure our changes are reflected. Okay, we'll create a new record, and you already see, because it's general, that field is hidden. But if I change it to legal, the field appears and it makes it business required. If I choose quality, again hidden, product hidden, but legal, it is. So that was on business rules, and we touched upon some very, very important concepts of when you start learning dynamics as a beginner. And I would really focus on 1, 2, 3, 4 of the elements. charts, dashboards, keys, relationships. I will not get into it right now because this will complicate your life, especially if you're a beginner. And that's what the audience is right now. So probably in my other sessions where I talk in detail about tables, we will talk about this. Um, Before we finalize the table part, um, I want to add one more column because the intent of this case investigation is that on a case level, I can select more than one case investigation. Sorry, I can select more than one case investigations. But right now, there is not at all any option to select case investigations. So what we will do is, first of all, if you want to make an association with with a case, so let's say if more than one records need to be associated to cases, then you make a lookup record on case investigation towards case, which allows you to have for every investigation you can specify to a case. So I will create, because it basically creates a relationship with them. So when I create a column called case, the relationship will also appear here directly. So maybe I can talk about relationships a little bit finally. Okay, so if I say sort of set, it shows all the relationships between different tables that this case investigation holds. So, and also the relationship type. So right now it shows you that with a lot of system related fields that Microsoft creates, it has added, but all the ones that we created, they will also appear here. For example, we created with user case investigation officer, that's here. So but right now here is nothing for cases if you click on related table. And when we create a new lookup, because a lookup is nothing but a relationship towards another table, so I will say case. I will choose lookup, and the related table is going to be case. All right, and I will say this is mandatory because a case investigation cannot be without a case. So we are saving this. This also means that it's nice to add the case lookup on the form as well. I would really recommend the exercises that I'm doing right now, you do it yourself, because if you want to become a good consultant, it requires so many clicks. The more you click, the more you learn. The more you fail, the more you learn. The more problems you get into, the more you learn. So make sure you try to make as many clicks as possible. Click on anything that you can find. Our case record has been created. It's type lookup, and now we go to relationships, and we will see this appearing here. So it's kind of, relationships are related to columns. And then you can also add it to the form, because right now you just added a field. You still need to make sure that it's reflected on the form. So we click on the form. And here when the form loads, we will say, oh, something went wrong. Okay, one more time. I will drag and put case over there. It is there, yes. And it's mandatory. And what I will also do is, I will lock it. I will make it read-only. Locking is not that essential, but yes, making it read-only is super important. Locking it basically means that this field should not be moved away from the form because of certain reasons. Okay. Now that I made changes, I will save and publish it. Our goal is to make sure that on a case level, we can add related investigations, which we have no option to. And that's why, just like how it's showing details right now on this form, I want to create a new tab, and these are called as tabs, which will be called case investigations, like you see case relationships, right? I can create a new tab called case investigations, and I want to be able to see all the related case investigations, but I should also be able to add case investigations directly from there. So that's why What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back. Okay, like I said earlier, if you don't want to make any changes to a case, then you need to first add the table, because changing a form of a table basically means working with that exact table. So there is no separate section of forms or views where you have a central repository of all the forms or views. They are all linked and unstructured under their relevant tables. Because the table case is not added to my solution, if I want to make any changes, I will add an existing and I will select table from here. And then I will look for case, which I can easily search from here. And I said case, and I say yes, next. And this is now an important part. Here you can just say add and don't select include all object, don't select include table metadata unless it's needed. So click on add. So I added a blank table, but what it does give me is the option to work with all these things. So I will click on forms. Because it's blank, none of the components that are structured under tables, for example, all the columns and everything, will not be automatically added. You first need to just add the skeleton and only add the parts that you need to customize. That's the best practice. That is what you should do. This is one of the very most important things that you should always keep in mind. Never add components to your solution that are not needed, especially that checkboxes with add all components, add metadata. Please don't do that unless it's needed, unless there is specifically stated, yes, this needs to be done. Okay, so add a blank table and only add the component that you need to work on. In this case, because I added a case and I want to work on the form, I will go on the form section and add an existing form. It shows me all the other components as well, so I can just directly add it from here. But I only want to edit the form, and the form that I want to edit, I know which one it is. It is case for interactive experience. And then I click and add it. As I mentioned, a table can have multiple forms, but I knew from the start what form I need to edit because I have prepared for this demo. That's why I know I need to choose this form. And when I click on it, it shows me the UI that's here, summary details, case relationships, affiliates, etc., etc. It will show me. It takes a bit of a time to load. Okay, so now it's loaded. What we can do is we need to add a new tab. Got it. And I will say I need a one column tab, and then a new tab has been added here, like you see, and I will call it case investigations, and I will say save. And now what I will do is, because this only adds a tab in the case, it doesn't really show case investigations. I do need to show all the related records. Remember, not all the records, related records. So everything from now on, what I'm going to do is super important. So please focus. I've created case investigations as a tab. So it's just a blank page that I have available. But now I have to show related records. Subgrid. Subgrid is a generic way for you to add records, show records on a tab. And records that are not related to case, but they refer to completely different table. So like lookup is an option for you to refer to another table, but only one record. Subgrid is the other way around. Subgrid allows you to give you a space to select multiple records, so more than one. So it's very informative as well. So I can add here in this new section, the subgrid, and you see the subgrid has been added. It says SG control, and now you can say case investigation. I will let it be like this. I don't want to hide the label. I want to show the label, so I will keep it like this. And Yes, and here I will still show related records. This is super important to check because otherwise you will see all the records of the table. You don't want to have that. You only want to show the related records for this particular case because there will be thousands of investigation records created, right? Because if customer department service department is doing investigations, they will be doing it for all the cases. You don't want all the investigations to appear for every case. You only want to show the related records or the related investigation records for that case. And that's why you need to check this box. And when you do this, you have the option to select, like I said, any of the tables that exist. So here I will choose for case investigations. And when you click on related, it only shows you the tables that are actually related to case. So that's the benefit. You click on case investigations, and then it asks you what views you want to show. And here it will show you the views that exist, the ones also that we created. But we will select active case investigations because we want to see all the records that are in active state and are related to this. The maximum number of rows, let's say we keep it to, instead of 4, we say 8. And also use available space. So it's dynamic. And that's it. So this is how it would look like apparently. And then we save. And we publish it. All right, so now it's publishing. What we would see as changes is exactly like this. When we go into a case, we can initiate a new investigation record and we can add our findings there. So because there can be multiple investigations per case, it can be a legal investigation, it can be a product investigation. We need to make sure that all those investigations can be added as records because the agent who is seeing this can see all the investigations and may reach to a conclusive outcome based on the investigations. So I will do a refresh, like I said earlier. Sometimes it requires Control F5, so I'm doing it now. And voila, you see your case investigations. You can also give this a logical name or hide it, this section. But you see, it shows investigations. One of the benefits of adding this subgrid as a part of case or as a part of any entity that you do for any other entities, when you try to create a new case investigation, it autofills the case for you. And this is super important. Otherwise, you can't add an investigation that's related to some other case to this case. So I'll say investigation 2, 3, and investigation officer. Again, same guy. And let's say I'm going to add a legal investigation. Result is legal. Okay, all the paper works were in order. And when I click save and close, it appears here as a record for this case. But does it only appear here? If I go back to my case investigations and I look for active case investigations, it will also appear here. INV23. So this concludes this session because I don't want to make it longer than this. In this session, we talked about tables in particular. We focused on them, how we can work with tables, how we can add new fields, how can we work with forms, how can we work with views, how do we get requirements on an existing table, how we can create a new table, how can we create subgrids. Please remember forms, views, fields, subgrids, lookups, they are very much fundamental to dynamics. All these words, the way I spoke them, you should remember them as is. Especially you're preparing for an interview, if it's your first day on the job. These things, you should definitely hear it and work with before getting into the space. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was informative. And if you have any comments, any suggestions, any sessions you would like me to talk about, please feel free to put comments and I will be able to attend to them. In the meantime, happy learning. Have a nice day. Enjoy.